Well, the whole chain was a family-run chain, and a gentleman named Sid Atlin in London, Ontario, opened the first Dr. Disc, I believe it was in '82, for his kids, for something to do, '82, '83. So I came on board about a year and a half later when I was at Western, and I was DJing at the time and just sort of acquainting myself in London with different record stores, and I knew I wanted the newest music, fastest and cheapest, so I thought, oh, I've got to get a job at a record store. Working at Dr. Disc in London, that really expanded my horizons, and I knew, you know, my mom said, finish your degree, I don't care what you do, just finish your degree. So it took me 7 years to get my 3-year BA. But after I finished, I knew I had to do something with music. So when the opportunity came to buy into the Dr. Disc chain, I thought, well, this is fantastic. You know, I'm gonna try and earn a living doing something that I really, really want to do, that I'm passionate about. So that made the transition to like my life in music a lot easier, was the fact that I had a chance to make money and do it at the same time. They were sort of in the midst of an expansion, and they said, did you want to, this was 1991 now, since I finished my degree, I had nothing to do, and I was like the buyer for that store. They said, oh, we're thinking of moving into other markets. So one of the markets we've chosen is Hamilton. Would you be interested in managing a store there? So I jumped at the opportunity and basically packed up and moved to Hamilton. And I actually, through the grace of my parents and their more healthier bank account than mine, they gave me some seed money for the store. And so I actually was a manager and partner in the operation with the family who started it. It was a family called the Atlins who owned it, and they had all of the, they didn't franchise in a sense. They owned all of the locations outright. So what happened during the years is actually Sid Atlin, the founder of it, who was kind of the, I guess you'd say, the figurehead of Dr. Disc, he had a heart attack one year and he died very suddenly at Christmas time. And so the family sort of, I wouldn't say they lost interest, but because he was the main force and the actual face of Dr. Disc, then what happened was they eventually sort of, you know, one son was an accountant and his wife wasn't really into music, so, and the kids had sort of moved on to different things. So I was the first store. I said, look, if you guys really aren't interested anymore, you know, is it okay if I buy you guys out? So they thought about it and they said, sure, it's time for us to sort of leave. And so they offered each store, they offered a purchase opportunity, I guess you'd say, to each manager at the time. So I've been here since '91, and the store's been in the same location and it's been open since '91. So this was one of a small number in that chain of stores, Dr. Disc stores. At the time when they did the buyout, I think it was down to just 5 stores. So I was one who bought in, Kitchener didn't, and then basically it was just whoever wanted to buy the stores and try their hand at them went ahead and did it. So it ended up being London, Windsor, and Hamilton was sort of the 3 surviving healthiest stores. And we're still here, but the London store folded maybe about 6 or 7 years ago. So it's just the 2 of us now. So that's how that ended up happening.
I started at Dr. Disc probably September 2001. Well, I actually first started off volunteering here. I'd known Mark for a really long time. I'd been shopping at the store since I was about 12 years old. I used to buy a lot of Hole Nirvana posters and such as that, and the vibe here, I guess, it was pretty lively. There was a lot of staff back then, and I got along with the staff really well, which is pretty much why I started here. They weren't sure if they were going to hire me on at first, just because I didn't know if they needed the staff, and I guess because I grew with the staff so well, and I was a really hard worker. Not that I'm not now, but that's why I got the job. I think it was actually a cassette that I bought here first. I don't remember. To be honest, I got a lot of my music from my sisters then, because I didn't have a lot of money. So I was more so here to shop for posters because they were a lot cheaper. And I kind of stole, I think, some of the music from my older sisters to kind of fill that gap. That and my friends had a lot to share too, so It was probably a cassette though, and I would guess it was a Nirvana cassette, but it could have been anything really.
I've been working here for, let me see, since about 1995. I've left for probably about a couple years in total, here or there to try different things. CD sales were definitely, you know, kind of soaring, and same with vinyl. Like 12-inch vinyl was something that was really selling a lot, which is basically what brought me to Dr. Disc in the first place. So mainly shopping here, I've started out buying hip hop, so it was definitely a hip hop record, probably a 12-inch.
I was terrified when I first started here, probably just because it's something that I wanted to do for so long. I've always had a really big interest in music, and I think meeting everybody was really overwhelming because they have such a big knowledge of it. So yeah, it was kind of frightening. Then I was very industrial minded at the time. Like I had just come out of high school. I was 18 when I started here. So I guess I was kind of your typical goth kid at the time. Okay. So I had a very musical family. We always grew up with vinyl around the house and stuff like that. I was used to listening to different things, but that was kind of my niche, I guess you would say.
Okay, so if you want to know about music, there's only so many ways to go about it. I mean, you pick up a Rolling Stone, and back then there was like fanzines where it was like all paper, and everyone was like churning out a fanzine. But where do you go to find out all the information about music with people who have similar likes and that can tell you, hey, if you like this, here's this. So the record store guy is the guy that you talk to, or girl, like, hey, if you like this or you like that. And Mark was one of those guys, right? It was his trade, or his whole business is to inform you about music, right?
He used to get us to, I don't know if he told you about the noise papers that we used to have. They were little news zines that we used to make, and myself and our friends were the ones assembling those back then.
Do I remember the first album I bought from Dr. Disc? Well, at the time I was a club DJ, and I was at the Sheraton Hotel, and I was playing dance, and I, particularly when I made a purchase, I had a guy working for me who covered it mostly with respect to the newer stuff, but I would like to get those rare Motown type mixes, or, you know, Kool and the Gang remixes, and that sort of thing that only Dr. Disc in this area would supply. So it was probably something funky and eclectic and different, which is the best part about shopping at Dr. Disc. You could literally spend hours and generally have more than you came in to buy at the end of it all.
So when I first came up to Hamilton, I went to Dr. Disc, and I ordered these 2 records, and within a couple of days they called me and they said, your records are in. And it was so bizarre, and that's how I found out about the other locations as well, because they all had some sort of like connection to the London store and the Windsor store. So that to me was just a great sign, the fact that they, you know, called me within a week to pick up the records. And I just enjoy, it's fun going to his shop, you know. They always have really interesting things that are out there, always really cool people, a lot of musicians that always hang out there as well. And it's so comfortable, you know. You're either, you know, looking at vinyl and talking about the importance of a record to a staff employee, or to another local musician, or to a local promoter. It's just like a really cool little hub. It's like going to a bar, except they don't have a liquor permit.
It was a boom time for music, and you know, in retrospect, I guess we didn't really know how good we had it, in a sense that it was easy to sell a lot of units of something. Or
it got a lot slower. CD sales started to decline, and vinyl sales were dwindling too. I mean, vinyl was never really the hot seller back then anyway. As
time went on and the digital medium grew, and you know, just the speed of downloading on the internet increased, and your connectivity and the bandwidth, and it became very, very easy to download music, you know, and there was the rise of Napster, for example. It was very hard. You know, as far as music stores go, there was this death knell, like, you know, people were predicting that bookstores, music stores, they just wouldn't exist in 10 years. We had a full line of music, and back then the 12-inch vinyl single was really popular for the DJs. So we were the only ones in town who sort of really were full on like 12-inch single and CD singles, which were big back then for the DJs. So we had that. Then from there we segued into selling equipment, and from there we segued into renting equipment. So it just sort of, that area sort of expanded, and it's, you know, as far as what we do now, it's still a large component of our business, even though a lot of DJs are digital now.
The mid to late 90s, you know, we got pretty heavily into it, and it's definitely a big part of it, and the rentals have totally brought in another group of clients that kind of helped balance things with the decline of CDs.
You know, the resurgence of vinyl kind of happened. Nobody predicted it. You know, no industry people. There were vinyl diehards who were just clinging to their records. You know, this is, if I die, you're gonna have to pry this from my cold, clammy hands, kind of thing. But there weren't people like trumpeting, oh yeah, in 5 years vinyl's gonna come back, and everybody, all the major chains and Walmart's gonna be selling vinyl. Nobody predicted that.
Well, I think Record Store Day came after record sales started to increase again, finally, thankfully. And so I think they kind of got on the bandwagon at the right time, and I think that helped promote the idea of vinyl again. I think it was very important, actually, that bigger companies started to pay attention.
Basically, it's people like to hold things. There's a nostalgic emotional value to a record that doesn't occur with a download. Downloads are convenient, they're portable, and yet records have this sort of history, because, you know, if you're a vinyl buyer, I can say, hey, there's that AC/DC Back in Black album, and you can say, yeah, I bought that at Dr. Disc, or I bought that at Cheapy's, it was in the summertime, my friends listened to it, but can you tell me when you downloaded an album? It's insignificant. It doesn't, there's no emotional resonance to it, and I think that's why vinyls come back, is that even, it doesn't matter if you're into vinyl or you've experienced before, you never have, people like to have an object and it has this history to it, has a personal history to it, you know, regardless if whether you think it sounds better or you have a, you know, a super trick stereo or whatever. The importance that I feel with vinyl is that it's an object sort of to cherish, to collect, and to sort of display and share. And I don't think with the digital format you get that emotional attachment that you do with objects, records or books or what have you.
Yeah, I would say my favorite vinyl all time would be Billy Bragg's Peel Sessions recording from 1980 something.
Kiss, Destroyer. Yeah, 100%. Kiss Destroyer album. How could you go wrong? They wore makeup. It was like a cartoon. The one guy was spitting blood. It was amazing. You opened up the album. It also gave you instructions on becoming part of the KISS Army. I mean, come on, man. You could be part of the KISS Army. You're like a little kid. You got ketchup in your mouth. You're spitting it all over God's creation. It's the greatest thing on the planet.
I always liked, you know, anything from New York City from the 70s, bands like the Dictators and the Ramones. I just love the fact and the way they just kind of represented that sort of street scene. Yeah. You could almost smell the streets by looking at the album covers. You know, it was like a really, really honest, descriptive way of the way they were presenting their music and their art. So.
And it always goes like every 7 or 8 years, there's this whole big resurgence of these new bands, and they're great, and then it'll die down a little bit, and then it'll go up again. Like in the 90s, we were supposed to be the next Seattle, next to Halifax, because Halifax had Sloan and all this other stuff. But now, like, you can just see, again, people starting to find out more about Hamilton.
I think Hamilton, for the longest time, has been known as a rock and roll city, blues, working man's town. But I think, you know, you look at the last couple of years and you see bands like Junior Boys, the Brat Festival that has been really kind of crossing over the classical world into the pop world. It's a lot more diverse, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we're becoming a lot more confident.
And the cities recognize that too. They're into you know, this music initiative that's happening now, tapping into this fund that the Ontario government set aside for the development of especially live music. The city's on board with that. They're setting up an office next year to handle you know, information flow in regards to distributing funds like that or applying for grants. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's not only just the musicians as well. It's like music is recognized. You know, Ontario government's done studies. It's the #1 economic factor of tourism. Like, it's the #1. People spend more money on going to see music participating in music than any other thing, like going into a different city. So it's even more attractive than food or, you know, theater or whatever. Music's the thing, so.
Like for somebody like me, I listen to everything, and I want to go see a rock show as much as a hip hop show. I like seeing live music, but it's a great city to be in right now.
Well, I'm really proud to be part of it. I have been part of it as a radio DJ for over 22 years, and now as a counselor who is very much behind all of council. As a matter of fact, things like our music strategy and working with committed members of the music community, whether it's bar and restaurant owners that bring in the bands, or folks that are having large and small festivals. It's great now to be organized in that capacity, to the point where I think the rest of the nation has always known Hamilton's been a vibrant music community, but to bring back the Junos and do things like that, and to be part of a council that really supports this great music scene and this thriving, ongoing music scene in Hamilton is something I'm very proud about.
I mean, to me, he was one of the pivotal guys that I think really validated this whole James Street North explosion. It's just the fact that he really, you know, for 20 plus years, he's been in that location doing nothing other than, you know, selling music and supporting music. And now, you know, as you said earlier, you know, Hamilton's trying to identify itself as a music city. It's guys like Mark that have always believed in it right from the get-go.
I'm absolutely stoked that he's decided to involve himself in the local community so much and so well, and has really lended his support back to the community, and just everything he's involved in. He doesn't ever seem to want to leave anybody out, which is it's really nice to see. It's such generosity is really appreciated, and I think people are really recognizing that. And it really reflects well in the store, too, as a result.
Over the last year and a half, 2 years, he has led the way for social media in regards to retailers and record stores. Yeah. And these are just simple things and that other people just didn't do, but Mark just goes out and does it. And it's like, let's do the it's like a band hashtag where it's like, band of the week. Hamilton band. Yes, Hamilton bands. And he'll tweet that, and other people retweet it, and he's keeping this, or like, you know, this band's coming out, this band's coming out. So you're always seeing him in social media as someone that's promoting Hamilton music, and someone you can refer to if you need to ask something about music.
Everybody divvied up stuff, and Twitter was the last thing on the board. I'm like, okay, I'll do it, because I didn't want to do it, but I ended up really, really liking it. So it was my first foray. I don't even have Facebook. Like, the store has Facebook. Yeah. Someone else does that. I don't have enough time. So it grew from like half an hour sort of tentative forays into what it was all about to a dialogue. And the more people, you know, I think there's like 4,200 followers or something, which is, you know, when I started it was like 300 about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I would say 80% of my followers are within this area, and that's what I want. It's an immediate way to reach people. I actually broke up the Dr. Disc account into 3 now, because there's one for tickets, because we got so many inquiries about tickets. It's this permanent, well, not permanent, but it's a constantly updated list of tickets we have on sale. And then I've got a Dr. Disc Local, which is all about local bands featuring local talent. And then I've got the main Dr. Disc account, which is everything else. So it's a labor of love, and I really like it. And I've met so many great people through Twitter and connected through to even bands. It's so easy to get in touch with bands and people. So
thanks to Mark, actually, mainly, he just went crazy with the social media thing, which has been helping us a lot. We do tons of promoting for different shows. So Dr. Disc Presents, I mean, we'll send our band around and do cheaper equipment rentals to people that we know we're going to have a show, and just kind of get the word out there that we're there as well and that we support indie music. We do consignment for any type of genre. Any type of band can bring their stuff in, and we'll sell it for them.
There's so much great Hamilton talent here, not just in rock, but in hip hop and blues and country. All this stuff is coming out, and it's not like we're waiting for it to explode. It's already out there, you know. And a lot of that has to also do with the people at Sonic Onion putting on Supercrawl for the last 4 or 5 years. It's bringing in more and more attention. It's a free festival. People come in from the Southern Ontario market. You come to a downtown, there's never a problem, and they get exposed to more Hamilton music.
Well, Sonic Onion, who Tim and Mark organized the Supercrawl, which is now within 4 or 5 years is Hamilton's largest festival of any kind. They started Sonic Onion within a year of Dr. Disc. I think they were a bit before. They were running it out of Mark Milne's basement, making tapes and things like that, his mom's basement. You know, there are pictures of them by the furnace room, like putting cassettes together and stuff, crazy. But we've had such a close relationship with them, and I was actually partners in buying that building next door, that anything that they sort of do that's, that we can help with or vice versa, we're really good like that. And I think most of the Hamilton's music community is like that. So when they got the idea of Supercrawl, actually it was this one little dinky stage sort of we had out back, and it was an October night and it was freezing rain, it was cold, and so I was sort of in charge of this little Dr. Disc stage, and we've always been involved ever since. And as the festival's grown, our responsibility in a sense has grown that we're in charge of a much larger stage now. But for our part, I want to keep the focus on local music. So all of the bands that I book for the quote-unquote Dr. Disc stage, which is set up adjacent to the store, are all local bands within the Hamilton or area, Dundas, Ancaster, that kind of thing. So that's my role, is to actively promote at this world-class festival local talent. The Hamilton Philharmonic, you know, they're looking to, much like we are, because classical music, people think of it as kind of the stagnant old person's genre, are looking to expand their audience. So they tweeted out one day, who would you like to see play with the Hamilton Philharmonic? And this one guy, I think his name's Steve, tweeted out Hachey, the mouthpiece. And I'm like, oh my God, that was so cool. A beatboxer with the Philharmonic. And that was the exact fit. I'm like, we got to make this happen. So I kind of like made the connections, because they didn't know who Hachey was, and Hachey really had no idea that he could ever collaborate with the Philharmonic. So I made the introductions, and away they went, and it happened. And I think it was one of the
you know, when you look at guys like Mark from Dr. Disc and you say this guy's been running a business for 20+ years, believing in what he truly believes, as well as having smart business sense, you know, he's one of the reasons why the city will exist, and that's one of the reasons why people believe in this city, because there's a smart ethic of business as well as the passion of the art.
You know, we're paying attention to, from a government perspective, from a municipal governing body, we recognize what so many people who have a vested interest, whether they're making a business of it like Mark is over at Dr. Disc, or whether it's Podesic and his gang at Sonic Onion, or the Supercrawl Committee, and we appreciate what it does in terms of economic impact for this community and the reputation it gives Hamilton, the positive reputation it gives Hamilton as it relates to not only the rest of the country, but frankly, the rest of North America, even worldwide.
But I hope it grows slowly and steadily, and everybody sort of rises together, rather than all of a sudden like, okay, Monster Truck's huge, we're going to get all the bands and try and sign all these bands who sound like Monster Truck from Hamilton and branded Hamilton as a heavy metal city or a jam band city or whatever. I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope all musical genres are and maybe this is a pipe dream, I hope all musical genres are recognized. I hope Hamilton's recognized nationwide, worldwide as a world-class music city, but that it's not exploited as such and used as sort of like, you know, like I said, a poaching area for all the best bands. So.
When you look at the failure of all these chain record stores, isn't it amazing that the record stores, like, you know, after the world's gone, the record stores that still survive are the record stores like Dr. Disc. You know, you don't have any more HMVs, you don't have any more Music Worlds, you don't have any more of these really dumb chain stores that were just kind of feeding you nothing but the flavor of the weeks. You know, you've got your true record stores, your independent record stores that withstood all of that. And, you know, they basically stuck to their guns, they built reputations with their clients, became friends. So it's, you know, definitely a pattern for success because they're still around. So I think it's really important to acknowledge the fact that, you know, while all these chain record stores have gone under, Dr. Disc stands loud and proud.